The following half-hour show is a paid political program and is not endorsed by this station, management, or staff.
The following program is sponsored by Excalibur Insurance Management Services.
We are pleased to bring you this week's guest, attorney Megan Sullivan, who is a candidate for the Superior Court of Pennsylvania and will be on the ballot this November. A little background will be helpful. Megan was born and raised in Philadelphia and did her undergraduate work at St. Joseph's University. After a brief stint in teaching, she decided on a legal career and put herself through law school by working as a full-time law clerk in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. She went to Temple Law School in the evening division because, as I said, she was working full-time to put herself through law school. And she graduated Temple University School of Law with a Juris Doctorate degree with honors. Megan Sullivan is a veteran litigator with 20 years of legal experience as both a criminal prosecutor and a civil attorney. She has served as a prosecutor in the Chester County District Attorney's Office, a deputy attorney general in the Pennsylvania Office of Attorney General, as well as a litigation attorney in private practice, and she's also a general counsel for a state university. Sullivan's extensive background in both criminal and civil litigation, which includes cases before both the Commonwealth and Superior Courts of Pennsylvania, provides her with a breadth of knowledge for an appellate court position. She was a prosecutor for more than 12 years. She worked for nearly a decade as the Assistant District Attorney in Chester County from 2002 to 2012. In 2017, Sullivan became a Pennsylvania Deputy Attorney General, where she worked to protect citizens through her investigation and prosecution of insurance fraud committed by individuals and corporations in every industry throughout the state. She also spent an extensive period of time in the appeals unit, drafting briefs and arguing appeals before the Superior Court of Pennsylvania. Through her experience in both the State Attorney General's office and the District Attorney's office, she has handled all aspects of criminal prosecutions and prosecuted an extensive range of crimes, ranging from child abuse to white-collar crime. In addition to her experience as a criminal prosecutor, Sullivan served as an assistant general counsel to West Chester University. We look forward to talking to her today as to why she wants to be a Superior Court judge and what her judicial philosophy is.
This is the Volpe Report, a weekly news and political interview show examining the latest local, state, and national issues with Chuck Volpe. Insightful, informative, controversial, the area's premier political talk show, the Volpe Report.
Megan, welcome to the Volpe Report.
Hi, thanks for having me, Chuck.
First question, since you're an active candidate, as our viewers know what you're running for and all that, how's the campaign going? First question.
You know, it's going great. There's 28 days left in the campaign. It started way back last year during Christmas time. So it's gone very quickly. When your life is task-oriented versus time-oriented, it goes very, very fast. And I was at a prayer breakfast actually at 6:15 this morning in Monroe County, and got the shot in the arm I needed from the guest speaker, Ann Byler, who owns Annie Ann's. And she was an inspiration, and also a Pennsylvanian, grew up in Lancaster, and was initially Amish.
Wow.
So it was just the shot in the arm I needed with 28 days left.
You're running for Superior Court of Pennsylvania,
Correct.
a high judicial intermediate appellate court of Pennsylvania, where I clerked 3 dogs ages ago. But the good news, at least, there is, we'll say the Marquis of Queensberry rules apply to judicial races. You
Correct.
can't attack your opponent. They call it compare and contrast, but no, you basically call your opponent every name in the book and try to associate them with whether it's the Ku Klux Klan or Antifa on the left. It's brutal. And in that chair, I've had a lot of candidates, whether for United States Senate, more recently for United States Congress, like Matt Cartwright in his race, and telling me about the difficulties of telling his kids don't watch the television. That's not your father.
Right.
But back. The point of that is, though, it was actually being on the road and going to events and meeting the people that rejuvenate you
Yes, absolutely.
The look in their eyes that, can you help us? I mean, are you going to be different? Are you going to be somebody that's going to do the right thing and make our life a little bit better? And you find people are the same wherever you go. It really is. You know, we get categorized in terms of geographic areas or dialects or accents, and well, at the end of the day, we're all pretty much the same. So it reminded me hearing you say that, that's why we do it.
Yes, absolutely. It's been actually, I'm from southeast Pennsylvania, I'm from Chester County. So getting out on the road has actually been a breath of fresh air for me, because Pennsylvanians are salt of the earth, good people, and their message, when you ask them, I always ask them, like, what do you look for in a judge? Like, why do you select who you do for judge when you get into the voters booth? And it's always, they never say party. It's never party. It's always, I want somebody objective, who's got integrity and backbone, and will apply the law to the facts, and just be fair. That's always what they want. It's never the political soundbite that comes out. So
Sure.
it's been very, very refreshing for me to meet all of these Pennsylvanians across the state, and know what they want.
Right. Well, since you're a first-time guest,
Yes.
and you're getting introduced to a lot of people, probably for the first time, and thankfully not in a 30-second commercial soundbite, but in 30 minutes.
Correct.
So let's talk a little bit about your background, and you took a path that took you to Temple University School of Law in Philadelphia.
Correct.
And then we'll talk about your professional career afterwards. But how did you get from where you're born to your background, your parents' background, so the people know a little bit about you? Because no one's going to vote for you unless they feel comfortable with who you are and that you're one of them.
There you go. So I grew up in a blue-collar family. My father and mother raised me in the Juniata Park section of Philadelphia. My father was a postal worker. After he came back from Vietnam, he was shot and thankfully lived. Came back and met my mom, and they got married, and he became a postal worker. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. So they sacrificed a lot for us, and but their message was always clear, and it's a message that is statewide, worldwide, is that you get educated, you work hard, and after those two things happen, you give back, and you use your talents to give back. And so I've lived by those principles my whole life. I went to St. Joe's University undergrad on a scholarship because we didn't have a lot of money. My parents, robbed Peter to pay Paul to send us to parochial Catholic school. And
St. Joseph's Jesuit.
That's correct. And my mom eventually ended up as a teacher at St. Joseph's Prep,
Wow.
which is where she is now. My son is a junior at that school.
Wow.
And so that's been a big mainstay for us. But so I went to St. Joe's University undergrad. And then, I didn't have a lot of money, but I also wasn't in debt. So I didn't quite know what I wanted to do as a 21-year-old. So I thought maybe teaching, maybe law, I'm not sure, but I certainly don't want to go into all that debt for law school if that's not what I want to do. Okay. So I left, and I was a double major in political science and German. And at that period in time, the wall had just come down in Berlin. The Cold War was, quote unquote, over. And so it was a great time to be there. So I left, and I did a program in Germany where I taught at a boarding school.
Wow.
And so got a lot of worldwide experience, and I realized I didn't want to be a teacher because I do believe teaching is a calling.
It is.
It's not just summers off,
Right.
and it was not my calling because I only wanted to teach the kids that wanted to learn, and that's not the majority.
Right.
So I came back home, and after a couple of years, and then I was looking around at law school, and but just wanted to make sure I wanted to be a lawyer. So many unsatisfied and dissatisfied lawyers in the world. Yeah. So worked at a couple of places as a paralegal.
Right. You clerked, as I recall, with the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office to help put yourself through law, or get the money for law school. I
did, because I finally landed at the DA's office, and I was like, oh, this is what this is what I want to do. I want to be in a courtroom, and I want to be helping the citizens, of Pennsylvania, in the case of Philadelphia, DA's office. So. I decided to work during the day because I had 275 built-in mentors. I had great young DAs helping me out through law school, and then I went to law school at night at Temple University with a couple of my other law clerks, and we made it through, and less debt, and so then I could actually afford to be a prosecutor.
Right. So you know, obviously, all this very relevant for a decision about a judge on the Superior Court of Pennsylvania. For our viewers, many of whom are not lawyers, don't know that before you get the highest court in Pennsylvania, of course, is the Supreme Court, and below that you have two appellate courts with different bifurcated duties. But the specific thing is that Superior Court handles all criminal matters.
Correct.
They also handle a whole lot of civil matters.
Correct.
And the Commonwealth Court is the court that deals with anything that involves the government, basically.
Correct.
If the government is involved at any level, whether it's a school district or a city or a county or a borough, the state itself, if it's in litigation with its citizens, will be in the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania.
Correct.
So, and then it goes up ultimately to Supreme Court. In most cases, not as automatic right, but we used to call it aliquotter back in the day, and now it's a petition for allowance of appeal. But either way, it gets there. So I clerked, my audience probably heard me say many times, so I apologize, but I clerked for the Superior Court of Pennsylvania. So your background, which we'll get into a little bit more in a second, but your background as a prosecutor is, you know, would clearly equip you, since the Superior Court, that is an automatic right of appeal.
Correct.
From every court of common pleas in all 67 counties of Pennsylvania, you have an automatic right of appeal to Superior Court in all criminal matters. So again, I would think that background would make you extremely qualified to be a judge.
Well, right. I was at the Chester County DA's office for over 10 years, and then I was also in the criminal section at the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office for a couple of years.
Wow.
And so I've done every type of prosecution you can do. But I also specialized at the Chester County DA's office in child abuse and also in appellate work.
Right.
But the child abuse work was I used to call it God's work. You know, it was just those were the toughest cases you had to try. Oftentimes there was no physical evidence. Oftentimes there was a reluctant witness because they're obviously worried about the perpetrator, because in 9 out of 10 cases they know the person well. And so just getting through that whole process with children and them facing the bad guy, the perpetrator, who they oftentimes knew, was the toughest work, but also the most satisfying, because at the end of the day, what you were providing was closure for that child, the beginning of a new life, and hopefully, shutting the door of the darkness that happens when children are abused. Right.
Well, again, with the Dr. Larry Nassar debacle, that and what it did to countless young women, of course, pretty much the entire United States women's gymnastics team, Simone Biles among others, Allie Reisman and others that have testified before Congress. And then of course, the companion tragedy of our time is all the abuse that occurred within the church. And you're talking about it, perpetrators, in positions of trust, in confidence, a doctor that creates trust when you say the word doctor, or a priest, even more so. So doing that is God's work.
Yeah, it is. It is, and those women were extremely brave. I watched a lot of that testimony, and it was unbelievable the amount of people that ignored them, that looked the other way. But it happens.
There were cases I've read where, in the Catholic Church situation, where parents actually told a child to basically just, it can't be true and forget about it, because they didn't want to believe that their priest would do that, and so they thought they're going to go to hell if the child told the truth about the priest. So yeah, it's difficult, and well, believe it or not, Megan, we're halfway through the show. It's time for our first break. It does blow by. That's 15 minutes gone, but when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on, in our society right now, and why judges on the Superior Court are so important. Again, we're here today with attorney Megan Sullivan, who is running for Superior Court of Pennsylvania. She will be on the ballot in about a month, so that's an election that will be coming up very soon. And as we all found out, the importance of courts refereeing the separation of powers between executive branches and legislative branches is very important to our country and to our state, and it's a very important vote. There are offices that, as Megan and I talked about off camera, people don't know a lot about, and there's usually not a ton of money in those races, so you have to do a little bit of work and research, and hopefully on this show you're finding out about a very qualified candidate. We'll be back after these messages.
Every week, Chuck Volpe shares his perspective on Pennsylvania issues in the news and on your mind. From new laws being introduced in Harrisburg and Washington to government spending and even local controversies, hear how they affect us in Northeast and Central Pennsylvania. Catch Volpe's views every Tuesday on the Fox 56 News, first at 10.
Welcome back. Again, we're here today with attorney Megan Sullivan, candidate for Superior Court of Pennsylvania, a high appellate court that handles as an automatic right all criminal appeals and convictions go up to Superior Court. It handles a lot of civil work as well and splits that up with the Commonwealth Court. But at any rate, Megan, some of your background. You were a prosecutor for the Chester County District Attorney, and you specialized in child abuse cases. And talk about that a little bit before we get into some of the other stuff.
Yes, I did the child abuse, and then after I was done doing the child abuse prosecutions, I had just had my second child, my Julia, who's now 13, and I got the opportunity to go over to the appellate division of the Chester County DA's office, which is super relevant and important for the role that I'm asking the people to vote for me for. I was in front of the Superior Court for almost 3 years, arguing cases trying to uphold criminal convictions of most often dangerous felons, murderers, and child abusers. So I got not on a daily basis, but I was writing a lot of briefs. I know what the appellate courts do, and I had an opportunity to argue in front of them multiple times.
So your experience as a lawyer, though, and this is important, isn't limited to prosecuting child abuse cases, as important as that is. But you're also dealing with murders and violent crime because now you're dealing with, as an appellate lawyer for the DA, upholding convictions. Correct. So, that would be, I would think, again, a qualification voters want to know about.
Yes, and oftentimes the people that I'm talking throughout Pennsylvania to, they don't really understand what the appellate courts do. And I have an analogy that I use if you could give me a minute. It's a lot like a football game. When you watch a football game, the levels of courts, and we're in the middle. So what happens is you have the teams, right? You have your defendant, you have your prosecutor. Those are the advocates, and then you have victims and defendants, and they're sort of the players on the field, and they're calling all the plays and that sort of stuff. The referees down on that field are the trial courts, the trial judges. They're making the calls. Is that a first down? Is that is that a touchdown? Is that they're making all of those calls as to what they see on the ground. But as we know, in football games, college and professional now, when there's a really close call and it's a really important play, you get the opportunity to go up to the instant replay booth. And that is what I like in the appellate courts too. After the trial's done, after all the balls and strikes or touchdowns and field goals are called, they say, we say, let's take a look and see if there was something that really affected the outcome of this person's trial, whether it be civil or criminal. So I liken it to being the people in the instant replay booth.
Especially since you're in an area where football is king, especially Friday night high school football throughout northeastern and central Pennsylvania.
That's right.
So that's a great analogy, and that's exactly what it is. You're reviewing to find out if errors were committed, and an error that would violate in a material, substantive way, potentially the outcome. And that's exactly what the Superior Court, as I said, I clerked there, so that is the standard. So. You have been rated by the Pennsylvania Bar Association. They recommended you for this position and qualified for it. I think that's an important fact for our viewers to know. So what's your view of the role of courts based on what's going on right now?
That's a great question, Chuck. So we have we're running as a slate, and our team is really solid together, and we have a very simple and clear message on what we will be, and this includes me, if we're elected. And we say we're going to stay in our lane, because the level of activism in our court, in our courts these days, is just, undeniably an overreach of what the judiciary was meant to be and what it was set up for. So you mentioned a lot of people don't understand, and why are judges important? Well, judges are really important because that's who individuals reach out to for their rights when they believe they've been violated. Right? So that's you don't reach out to your state senator. They make the laws. But what you say is, my rights have been violated. Where am I going to go? You go to a judge. So judges touch people's lives every day, and it's so important for us to protect those individual rights. But we're not the legislature. We are the judiciary. So we review it. We make sure rights are being upheld, and if they're not, we return them to the place where they need to go to revise it. We don't make the law. And so staying in our lane and doing what the judiciary was always meant to do under the Constitution is so important to all four of us. I mean, we have Kevin Brobson running for the Supreme Court. Right. We have Stacey Wallace and Drew Crompton running for the 2 spots on Commonwealth Court, and me running for Superior Court. And we're all of that. We're all of that mindset. And we all, in our own way, came to run because of what we're seeing now nationwide, but also in Pennsylvania, so definitely.
Right. Well, I mentioned to you off camera that we're breaking records. We broke one last year, and we topped it this year. This was the highest single, I believe, in a year increase in murder across this country. And it's not surprising to me the compromising that's gone on of police officers has made it difficult for them to do their job, and in many places, more liberal places, they've actually been pulled back. I mean, they have not even been allowed to effectively do their jobs, and so murder went up, I think, 30% last year, and now obviously the pandemic increased that. In fact, the study listed the causes. One was the pandemic, and the other one was the stigmatizing of the police and neutering them effectively. So, the Superior Court handles all criminal cases, all assaults, all violent crime, all homicides go to that court. So,
correct.
Your view on is important, which you just enunciated. Your view on the role of the courts is important, and all that. So I know that's right in why you're running.
Right, the law is the law. It's not what I want the law to be. It is as written, and it needs to be applied. And also, judicial restraint, the concept of judicial restraint is really absolutely born out of the Constitution, because lawyers and business people and individuals every day need to know that there's precedent to rely on, that there's a consistency in the law that they can rely on in order to run their business, in order to run their law practice, in order to run their everyday lives. If there's not consistency because you want a certain result, then our whole system kind of falls into itself.
Right. Well, I talked about this a little bit with Kevin. And, I guess there's obviously, we know as lawyers, there's great gray areas. There's very little purely black and white. But this, to me, is the argument is a black and white argument. The argument effectively is either our Constitution, the basis on which this country was founded, is what it is and what it was intended to be, or the Constitution is this amorphous document that gets to change and be molded based on the times as time goes by, and it's whatever you want it to be for that particular time. And I fundamentally disagree with that proposition, and especially when they talk about the Constitution in the sense that it was drafted by 18th century noblemen, politicians, and the like, but that somehow that their thinking was outdated and the principles that went in there were a creature of the time of the document. And I fundamentally, the notion that all men are created equal, meaning men being the universal men, being women and men, are created equal, And the government's job is to basically guarantee, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I'm pretty sure that's good from the time of Jesus Christ and before that time and right to this day. Those are fundamental principles, and that's what that document does. And therefore, life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness cannot be defined by the current generation's views of what those things are.
Or even if you're looking in the current view, if you're current day, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is different for you than it is for me. But it is applicable, like you said. It's applicable, back when the founding fathers were in this country till today. But it is, it's something that's meant to be, very wide range, because it doesn't mean the same thing to you and me. But that's the beauty of the law,
right? That's exactly right.
So we have to allow people to do those things without this government overreach.
Right.
It's just, government doesn't know what I want out of life. It doesn't know what makes me happy, and I've worked in government. I've loved being a prosecutor and those sorts of things, but I don't want the government in every inch of my life.
Sure, and I don't think that, Megan. I don't think we saw that in a clear or starker contrast than we saw it this past year. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court took a pass on some fundamental issues. And I think because they viewed it as, well, the ends kind of justifies the means. And you're Jesuit trained and I'm Jesuit trained. That was one of the first. The end can never be used to justify the means in a moral society. And therefore, the things that were done, bending over backwards to accommodate a governor, it took a United States federal district court judge, Stickman in Pittsburgh, to finally say, stop, what you're doing is unconstitutional and illegal. And but at any rate, it's refreshing to hear a person that has the viewpoints you have, and we need more people like you on the appellate courts. So we're at the part of the show now, Megan, the last minute and a half or two we have left. I do this with all candidates. And actually, this is the one time we'll make the exception. You don't have to look at me. You can talk right to the people in that middle camera as to why they should vote for you for Superior Court. Okay. Basically a summation.
Okay. So it is really my experience both in front of the Superior Court and it's also the balance of my career that is very important. Chuck and I did not go into the fact that I also have half of my career has been spent as a civil litigator. So I have the balance of criminal law as a prosecutor and also as a civil litigator. I have an extensive bench, as to do another sports analogy. That's so important for the Superior Court because it handles criminal matters and also civil matters. And the civil matters that get argued, it's often the procedure and the process, which can be. Which you need the experience of a civil litigator to know how complex that can be sometimes. I also have extensive experience in front of the Superior Court, which I think sort of separates me and makes me unique in the practice of law, but also as a Superior Court judge candidate.
Well said, Megan. Well, again, in conclusion of this show, we were here today. You heard very eloquently stated her reasons for running for Superior Court of Pennsylvania. As a reminder, that election will be on the ballot this November, in about a month from now. And we were here with attorney Megan Sullivan. I'm sure you saw her name a lot on the screen underneath, and you heard the reasons why she's running and what her judicial philosophy is. And of course, our job is to bring the candidates to you statewide, especially that will affect your life. We'll be back again next week at 10:30 with another guest.